Hi. In this video, I'm going to be covering a game from round 3 of the US Chess Championships between Wesley So and Sam Shankland. After e4, c6, d4, and d5, the starting moves of the game, we get into the Caro-Kann defense, and here Wesley chooses to go for e5, the advanced variation, and after bishop f5 and h4, we get the Tal variation, where the point is White wants to play g4 and h5 to trap the bishop, so Shankland responds with h5, and here we get c4 breaking in the center. We get a response of e6, which is a normal move to after you get the bishop out of the pawn chain, because Black needs to develop his pieces to e7. So we get knight c3, takes, bishop takes, knight d7, knight to e2. The reason the knight didn't go to f3 is because here it would be blocking the f pawn, which may be important in the future, but also like bishop g4 would be annoying, um, and the knight is more flexible on e2, so that's why we got knight to e2, and after bishop e7, g3, defending the h4 pawn, knight h6, black develops, bishop f4, well, like again a developing move, and queen b6 here. Here, Wesley decides to castle, and the b2 pawn looks hanging, but really Black shouldn't take it. If he takes, White can play bishop d3 here. He would like to play rook b1, obviously, but that just drops a rook right now. So first, White can start with bishop d3, and after the trade, let's say, Black's queen is misplaced, and the pawn doesn't really matter too much because White will get a lot of activity on the b file and a lot of time on tempo on the queen. So in the game we got long castles instead, and a3, which is already basically showing that the game uh, is gonna be a very double-edged fight. White plans to go b4 and just start launching the pawns at Black's king. Here we get king b8. It's hard for Black to make counterplay on the king side here, because White has a pretty decent grip with over the g5 square, and so it'll be hard to carry out any breaks with g5. So without that, Black has no other way to create counterplay. So he just decides to uh, brace for impact and just tuck his king away. We get b4 as planned, and then king a8, just making sure that the king will at least be somewhat safe after the trades on the queen side. So b5, uh, Wesley continues pushing, and we get knight g4 here, trying to activate the knight or make more use of it than it was on h6. a4 here, continuing with the queen side plan, and we get queen a5, and the point of queen a5 is to block the a5 square and stop a5 from coming immediately. And here, the White can start immediately opening up the queen side, which is what he does with pawn takes, and we get an interesting move, queen to c1. White doesn't have any other way to develop his attack because the queen wouldn't really be well placed on d2. There would always be this annoying threat of a trade if the knight ever moves. So, and the c2 square is covered by the bishop, so we get queen c1, putting the queen on the c file and moving over for the rook to come to d1. Here we have rook b8 by Shankland, putting the rook on the open file, rook d1, rook to d8, and bishop a2 dropping the bishop back from c4. It's not doing anything more on c4 than it is on a2, because here this diagonal wasn't useful early, so it's better placed on a2 where it can't be a target. Here we get knight b6, and this move seems natural, I guess, maybe trying to put a knight on d5, but we get the response bishop g5, and basically black has a issue with this knight on g4, and it's doing nothing, and it's running out of squares pretty fast, especially, and if uh, bishop takes here, I think already h takes g5, yeah, and white is a lot better here because black has no good way to meet f3 trapping the knight. So f6 is what we get here instead. Knight takes, bringing the knight back, but now black's pawns are very weak, especially the ones on e6 and c6, and I think, yeah, black's position is already not very great. Knight f4, attacking the pawn on e6, we get e5, but Wesley plays knight e6 anyways, trading off his knight for the bishop on f5, which was one of black's only useful pieces, which restricted, I guess, white's entire position. And now after rook takes d4, and e takes d4, we get knight to e2. Black has a lot of weaknesses in this position, especially the pawns on c6 and d4 and his king. And we get queen c5, trying to trade off the queens to ease the pressure on black's position, but Wesley plays a5 and attacks the knight. Here, if queen takes c1, rook takes c1, it doesn't help black, the queen trade in this case, because the pawns on d4 and c6 are still going to be falling. So we get knight to d5, but after knight takes d4, white is just crushing. And the point behind this piece sacrifice is that after queen takes d4, queen takes c6, rook b7, black's king is just going to get checkmated. Right now, there's the threat of the rook on, of black taking the rook on a1, but I think after takes, black can't take the rook on a1 right now because it's defended by the bishop, and bishop takes here. I think rook b1 or a6 should both be winning for white, because black's king is getting mated, regardless of whatever, regardless if black takes the rook on a1. Let's say black tries to defend here, the rook on b7, after check, rook b8, and bishop takes d5. It's game over. So, yeah, at this point, we get a few more moves, but white is already winning. Knight c3, bishop e3, rook d8, queen to f1, and this is it's just a matter of converting at this point. Knight d5 takes, queen a6, bishop c5, knight takes, and yeah, black gave up all in this position to hold work to defend against the attack, and the game's done. So we get these moves, and then Sam Shanklin resigned. So yeah, that was an interesting like attacking game with the opposite side castling. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.